Welcome back to the Private Practice Playbook. Emily Restrepo here, and before we jump in, I want to set the stage for today's episode because the timing of this one really matters. This time of year can feel like a lot. Busy schedules, holiday distractions, end-of-year pressure, all of it. But Jay always reminds us that this season is actually one of the biggest opportunities for practice owners. It's the stretch that separates the practices that get ahead from the ones that wind down. In today's episode, Jay will walk you through exactly how to take advantage of that. He's covering 3 practical moves you can make right now to finish the year strong. How to make smart, strategic year-end investments that actually grow your practice. How to keep your team focused and intentional during the holiday chaos. And how to front-load next year so that you start with real momentum. It's timely, it's actionable, and honestly, it's the kind of guidance most owners never get. Let's get into it.
Private Practice Playbook. It's a Private Practice Playbook.
Welcome. So what an exciting time of year. You know, we're sitting here, there's college football's getting excited. Seasons are changing. Some of you are going to have snow before you know it. And so, you know, they also say that this is one of the most stressful times of year for people. And so today I want to talk a little bit about, and I think we've done a few episodes on this, but this idea of how you run counter to the culture. And I want to talk about 3 really critical things that as a practitioner that, you know, you've got to do right now, and how to help you reframe, you know, how do I turn the most stressful time for most people into the most exciting time for me? And how do I take advantage of this? And how do I, you know, how do you ask yourself the right questions? That's one of the things, you know, coaching people for as long as I have is all about the questions that I ask them. And it's about the repetition of that and the nuancing of that. And as you progress through another year, you know, it's kind of like if you think about, this morning, somebody was thanking me for a birthday acknowledgement. And I thought, you know, I was thinking the sign-off should always be, you know, at your birthday, you should be so excited about being a year better, you know? In other words, you've lived another year of your life. You have a new set of experiences, which every year is a new set of experiences. You have a new set of knowledge, and you have a new perspective. But no, people have to turn it into, oh, I'm getting older, here's what I can't do. And so it is asking yourself the right questions. And so I want to go through 3 particular things. And, you know, I could talk about this for hours. We'll try, obviously, to not go crazy on this. But so we'll talk about 3 specific things. And so these, you know, you could think of them as sort of 3 major focuses. And these are, again, you want to eventually make these rituals, and they want to be sort of innate, kind of like, you know, if you're a dentist, I mean, I doubt you think about brushing and flossing. It just happens naturally. I don't think you have to remind yourself, you know, kind of like you have to remind the patients that they're not flossing, right? You just floss. And so, okay, so the natural issue for people at the end of the year is fatigue. It's kind of like in sports or in anything, at the end, people fatigue. And what you're really supposed to do is get stronger and stronger. So the first thing we have to look at is what are maybe the last quarter of the year, the last month of the year, the most important tax strategies and really investment strategies for your practice. And I think that a lot of people, what they do is they will go to their accountant, and their accountant will say, hey, if you would just buy this equipment, you know, we can get rid of your tax bill. And people just do that over and over and over again. And listen, I'm not saying that's not a great move, but you got to be really careful about every year financing a bunch of equipment, because the problem with that, and a problem with, you know, equipment, I mean, you need it, but the truth is it doesn't always translate into growth. And so the really smart people understand that at this time of the year, we have to figure out how to reinvest in your practice, meaning how do we make investments that we can make tax-free that are going to cause the next year to be greater? And these are really pretty specific. Like, so for me, like one of the things I always do is I always look at my self-development, and I make decisions not in March or April, but I'm making them now. So do I need to, where do I need to be? Who's going to hold me accountable next year? What's that going to look like? And for any of you that are living sort of what we call a non-accountable life, I mean, you have to snap out of it and realize that, everyone thinks there's these secrets to life. I mean, the biggest secret to life is forcing yourself to be accountable and putting yourself in a position where you're going to be asked the important questions, where somebody can kind of call your BS. And a lot of people don't realize they end up creating a life where, nobody says anything to them, nobody's truthful with them, and then they actually kind of believe it themselves. So what is it that you need to do? So this is an important time. I always tell people, this is the time of the year to commit to something. So like, I have a January coaching class coming up. You can call my office. You commit to coaching for a year. I mean, then you see, oh, is it different? Well, yeah, you'll see it's different. We also want to look at what we can do if you have, if your tax calendar is such that, it's a December 31 date. And what do we need to do? We have to kind of drain the money out of these accounts. So do we prepay rent, in January? What are some of the things we do so that also, I think really important, retention. I mean, this is the time of year I'll take and ask for what everybody made, what they earned, and any incentive pay, and to get to their total pay. And I usually go down that list, and there's 2 or 3 people that I think people on my team didn't pay them enough. And I might throw them a little extra money at the end of the year, that kind of thing. But to me, that's an investment, right? I mean, if I were to find a person and give them an extra 1,000, or if you were to find a key person and you said, hey, I'd like to give you $1,000, and I think you had a great year with us, and it's a one-time bonus, you have to see that as a retention investment, right? I mean, some of you probably have lost really good people because you just let the exchange get out. You kind of like could have thrown them that extra money, but instead you bought some new equipment. And all of a sudden you lose a key person. And they're never going to tell you, the reason you lost me was because, had you just given me a $2,000 end of the year bonus. And remember, I'm not talking about breaking the bank. I'm saying go down the list of your employees and figure out who you don't want to lose. And remember, a one-time payment, it requires the cash. Raises require paid over time. So we, sometimes even you say to people, look, would you prefer $1,000 now, or would you prefer $1,000 raise next year? I mean, yes, I sometimes will ask people that, but that to me is an investment, right? Just like if you commit to showing up somewhere different, like if your whole year last year, a lot of you, this problem of continuing education, it's like you need it, but it's not giving you what you need. I mean, most people don't go, I went to continuing education and my practice quadrupled, right? So the truth is they get very mired in the detail of delivery and not what they need to do to grow. So what are the investments that need to be made? What are the tax plays that need to be made correctly? And by the way, that one of, buy a bunch of stuff at the end of the year and finance it is not the greatest move. Sometimes you'd be better off just to pay the tax bill because it doesn't, mean interest and everything. So figure out what that's going to be. And then really managing cash on hand through the end of the year. And then really up to almost the last day of the year, trying to sort of say, hey, where are we going to put cash? I also like at the end of the year to make commitments. So I'm usually, by this time, I've made a lot of commitments, right? And we'll get into those. Okay, so number 2 is how do you and your team block out the world? Meaning that, we now know from studies that there's this dopamine fix, right, that's occurring in our society. And you see it if you go out to dinner and you'll see a young kid and they got their little iPad and they're just mesmerized by the iPad. I mean, they just always have to have the technology. And it's like this weirdly unfulfilling, it's sort of why TikTok and everything is so addictive to people, is that it is literally addictive, but it is literally not productive. I mean, it's like, and again, I'm not denying the fact that people love an escape. I mean, it's why people watch too much TV, or they drink too much, or they do drugs. There's all kinds of, but the point is, what you have to do is at the turn of the year, and I want to talk particularly about this holiday creep. And so I worked for a guy for many years, and he was always very good about this. And let me share a little bit about what he said. He said, Jay, this time of year, we're not competing. We don't have any competitors. He used to always say, this was many years ago, he'd say, we're competing with Thanksgiving and Santa Claus, right? So I guess, you say to that, you're like, well, what are you talking about? Well, this is an example, okay? If a team is left to their own devices, what they're going to do is they will start to drift into their personal activities, planning for the holidays, talking about the holidays, wearing Christmas sweaters. I mean, and the next thing you know, you're running a Christmas shop or whatever, or a Hanukkah shop, or whatever you do. And what you don't realize is that it takes the focus away from the customer. What does the customer want? What does the patient want? Takes the focus away from their job performance. And so I've toyed with this for many, many years, and we don't want, this is real. People have things to do. But I think what's important is how you help people to realize that we don't want to make the business a Christmas tree store. The business, you got to remember that the patients, they have a lot going on. They want to get a lot done. They want to get into the doctor by the end of the year. And so this is our opportunity to really crank it out, and our opportunity to serve and be available to the customers. And so in order to do that, what we've got to do is we've got to just be a little tighter in our thinking and a little tighter in what we do, and work really hard. And then when you are off, go do the things you need to do at full tilt. But let's not blend them all together. I mean, I don't want your team sitting at their Thanksgiving dinner saying, when they go around and say, what are you thankful for? You're not on the list, right? I mean, you want them to say, like, I'm thankful for my job. I'm thankful for the people I get to work with. I'm thankful for what we do. But just like when they're at work, they have to think about work. I mean, that's for all of us, right? And so this time of year is an opportunity to do some things. Maybe you need to increase the meetings. Maybe you need to run an end of the year contest. Maybe you just need to have a group chat about this. And maybe you need to look at everybody's schedules and make sure that we have a good plan. We know when we're going to be there. We've communicated it. We know when people are off, and we're fully supportive of whatever that's going to be. I mean, I think that's a critical thing that you got to do this time of year. And the more it is planned out, the more it is turned into something fun. Hey, finish strong contest. Guys, there's going to be, if we hit this mark, everyone gets a gift card for X, right? You have to create something that is going to feed them to be focused. And these are basic, but yet very powerful. Who's manning the phones when? What's that going to look like, right? How do we not and again, the laziness can turn into, like, when the patient calls, they can just hear the complacency, right? They can hear the team member that's really thinking about what their vacation is going to be like, or what they need to buy for Christmas gifts, or their lack of resources that are stressing them out, or the fact that they're married to somebody who drinks too much. I mean, all the stuff of life, right? And so you need to be that beacon of, like, let's be organized, let's be intentional, let's appreciate that we got to finish the year strong, and we're going to have some time off, and what that's going to look like. So And please, I know this may sound counterintuitive, like it's none of your business, but that's just wrong. Your job, and we have to do this, is like seasonal aspiration. And there is a particular thing that needs to be done this time of year, which is finishing strong. And that always helps to set up next year. And I won't go into next year because we'll do that on another episode. But, you have to think about it. When that calendar flips and people come back to work after the first of the year, we have a 12-month run to go through. So the key, people tend to sort of finish weak, and we don't want to do that. And when people do finish weak, it's always a byproduct of not following this ritual of how do I ward off them being distracted? And again, you have to remember that now more than ever, they're just constantly distracted by what's on their phones. And so also this idea of, hey, don't be afraid to remind your team, not like curmudgeon-y. You can't say, phones are stupid. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like for instance, if we want to reduce stress in someone's life, they're going to reduce social media. There is every study clearly says that social media actually creates enormous stress in people's lives. And look, we all need to be reminded of that. And by the way, I'm reminding you of that right now. So, looking at pictures of other people doing things is not a strategy. It's an escape behavior. And yes, it's fun. And yes, you're curious, but we're talking about specific action. So rally the troops, discuss this, get comfortable with it. That's what I do, and just remind them. And it's a helpful reminder to help the team realize they need to maybe do a little better. Plan your weekends to get the stuff done you need to get done so that you can be present at work, and make good use of whatever the time is after work. But let's not try to do our online Christmas shopping while we're looking at a patient, right?
You didn't go to school just to become an employee. You became a doctor to own something, to build something, and to make it as valuable as possible so that if you ever chose to sell, you get maximum value for the business you worked so hard to create. At the Practice Growth Institute, we've spent over 2 decades helping practice owners do exactly that. Growing revenue, multiplying value, and creating real autonomy without giving up equity. Ready to take the next step? Visit mypgi.com and apply for coaching today.
So how do we look at where you are, look at how you want to finish? Like, is it a number of new patients, which is always a great challenge? You guys got to remember that the new patient number is I think it's the greatest cultural, if you want to know what's happening in your business, it's that new patient number, right? Like when it starts to die down, when it goes up. So find a statistic that is important. Are we promoting that patients that have not had their second visit? One of the easiest campaigns to run if you need more business is the campaign to invite or send a letter to every patient of record that hasn't been in for their second visit, and to say, we can get you in. That is a huge, huge annual opportunity that is missed by most people. Okay, so number three is this concept of front loading next year. So if I were to be with you and we were to look at my calendar, I've got a little bit of time off over the holidays and I want to be intentional with that. But the minute I get back, it is like bam, bam, bam. And in the month of December, I will have done a lot to plan what's going to happen in January. So for instance, now in January, you might be back to getting that first appointment scheduled, right? Whatever it might be, or unfinished treatment or whatever you want to do. But you got to kind of, let's think of an analogy. It's preloading it, right? So do we have some kind of a campaign schedule? Do we have some kind of are we going to launch a new service to patients? What do we have that in January is meaningful, right? It's Like I put my first, so for instance, I have a new coaching class starting early in January. And then January and February, I have all my coaching clients come in for 2 days. And so the fact that they're going to show up is part of that preloading, right? They're going to be here, they're going to get engaged, and whatever, that's not a literal hangover, but a hangover from the holidays, we kind of get back in the business. So this is looking at your calendar. This is planning your team experiences for the next year. So for instance, a lot of you, maybe you don't have a kickoff meeting, right? Kickoff meetings are wonderful. You don't have to be really complex, but you got to get that on the calendar now. So like we're going to come back and we're going to have a meeting and we're going to recap what happened last year. And we're talking about what's going to happen this year. Like it's really important that as you turn that calendar year, that this is ritualistic, right? And so you got to get the team back in the business come January. So now is the time, right? So some people, you might even be trying to pre-book patients that don't want to come in December, getting them pre-booked for January. Okay, look at every patient of record. How many of them have scheduled appointments for next year? Well, this is the kind of thing we want to attack. So as we're finishing up this year, we're also trying to figure out what are the things I want pre-scheduled for early next year that cause us to have a great year. And look, obviously, we ask our clients to be pretty sophisticated in this. We are usually publishing an all-team calendar that's actually pretty sophisticated so that each employee or each team member knows when the entire company is going to be coming together so that they can plan vacation time or free time off. And, I don't want to make you feel bad, but like the difference between somebody who's been a coaching client with me for a bunch of years and the normal doctor, there's a day and night situation. Most doctors are ad-libbing a lot of the scheduling. It's a real, almost like a disrespect to your team. And which of course they like to make the excuse that they're not organized, which is really invalid. There's no real excuse for that. It's really just an insensitivity. And so if we think about how do you respect a team member, right? Well, one of the things that I think is really important, and I've studied this a lot, is to publish. So every date, I'm sitting in, I usually publish those in November. So in November, I'm publishing all the critical dates for next year, if not sooner, for my team so that they can do their own life planning around that. If they're going to book a wedding, ideally, maybe I'm going to say that they always can't avoid these dates. Sometimes they have a family member who has a wedding, it's going to be, but in general, your team will try to respect those boundaries if you give them the opportunity. So what is on the calendar? Like, what are you excited about for next year, right? So populating this, and it's really about, do you have any kind of a leadership group? And we want to go into the year with that leadership group. You can't own everything. This is a big mistake. So this is, right now I am literally going from person to person to person, department to department to department, asking for goals for next year. And not only do I want those goals, but I want them to have plans that are commensurate with those goals. And I want them to be in reality on that. And I really want them to own it. I do not want, and you do not want, to be constantly pestering people to do better. You want to give them the framework for doing well. So like December 5th in Atlanta, I'm hosting an event on how to have the best year ever. And listen, this tradition, sort of like ritualizing these, there are things I do every November, every December, every January, every February, and it's like they're what makes you do better. And I think what's scary is there's a lot of people who just get trapped in thinking that treating more patients and learning a new technique and being a better dentist or a better doctor or whatever kind of doctor you are is the key to success. That is absolutely necessary, but not the key to success, right? The key to success is to be able to think and look at things in a way that actually creates a greater scale in your business, and to really, really be intentional about how you build what you think of as a dream team. That's a good question you should ask yourself. Do you currently have a dream team? And listen, if you do, some of these actions are so critical because dream teams don't like when their leader gets distracted. It's the same thing. We talk about these last couple months. If you're a distracted leader, that's a problem. If you get distracted, right? If you get too busy with thinking about if you're going to go to a holiday party or have a holiday party, or if you're going to, whatever it is. So the invitation for you is to elevate the way you think about your impact. And I just want to say to you that, and maybe nobody says it, and I'll just kind of end on this, that your ability to truly, truly recognize that you are the leader. And I know a lot of you don't want to be the leader. You just wanted to be a doctor. And you're like, wow, how did I end up being the leader? Well, it is what it is. I can't take that away. And that the words and the gestures and the comments and the affirmations and the positivity and the experiences and the intention that comes out of you, those are super, super meaningful to all of the people who choose to work for you and for all of the people that choose to do business with you. And so they got to come out of your mouth, right? I mean, you can't curl up and hide, and you can't say, well, I'm an introvert and I don't like to do this, or I don't know how to. And I know it's counterintuitive, but trust my advice that the words that come out of your mouth that you need to be intentional about have a tremendous impact on everyone who works for you. It'll be the difference between them staying or leaving. It'll be the difference between them putting it all on the line for you or becoming very complacent. So embrace this and finish this year strong. And if it's finally the time for you to get some professional help, feel free to apply for coaching at the end of the year. I mean, you want to be excited. That would do it. All right, I'm out of here. I know you can do this. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening today. I hope something Jay shared gives you a clear action to take this week. This is the time of year to make smart moves. As Jay said, one of the best end-of-year strategies is taking money out of the business and reinvesting it back into the practice, into the things that actually drive growth. Coaching, leadership, accountability, team development, those are the investments that pay off. So if you're ready to put that strategy to work, give us a call at 770-518-3806 or go to mypgi.com to get started today. Be sure to follow, rate, and share this episode with another growth-minded doc in your circle, and we'll see you in the next one.